Richard Anderson was finishing up
Mhm.
and mixing Beetlejuice. And I was like, what is this Beetlejuice? You would see rolls of tape, and in the computer, you would see the name Beetlejuice associated with those rolls of tape.
Mhm.
And they were things that John Pospisil had made. And I was like, what is this Beetle? And it was so wild to hear this funny word, Beetlejuice,
Mhm.
bantered around. And then that a year later, it would be this kind of legendary thing,
Yeah.
that everybody knows about. And I had no
It's
idea quite what it was, because they were on the dub stage, kind of that phase that you and I weren't really that involved in around editorial and the library stuff.
I
So
tried to make
I
myself
never saw anything about it until it came out.
I
But
try to
that was
make
what was
myself
being
of
finished.
you and I both made deliveries to the dub stages and things like that, and I always tried to hang
Sure.
out as much as I could, but
Yeah.
our place was in the library, and painfully so sometimes when an editor is needing to cut changes or add sounds, and we would send stuff, and on their lunch break they would make all the changes and all that. We had to stay vigilant for their calls in case something came in.
Yeah.
And back
So
in the
that was
day, that
kind of
meant ordering a print, and it would take a couple hours tops. Anyway,
laborious process somewhat.
yeah.
But yeah, we would get these glimpses sometimes of how the films were being mixed, and as we got more involved, we would show up at mixes where, if the director was not especially temperamental, or
Yeah.
and we would learn about the mixing process.
I had met Richard, Steve, and Mark all separately
Huh.
in different circumstances. Steve and I'd met on the dub stage because RoboCop was a film that some friends were involved in, and my dad was friends with the producers. So I'd go to the soundstage and I'd meet him and talk. And
With John Davison.
John Davison was the guy, yeah.
Yeah.
And he invited us down to the dub, and I got to talk to Steven. Mark Mangini I had met through Joe Dante, as you did. And Richard Anderson, I'd been a big fan of his because Ben Burt was saying, you should go talk to Richard. I went to college with him. He's a great guy. You might have luck working there instead of, moving to the ranch. So I'd met them all independently. And then I was like, asking Mark for an interview for a project I was doing. In fact, I was asking all of them for interviews, any way to come in and learn things. I would write an article or something as an excuse to come and infiltrate. You were even in the room when I interviewed Richard once. Do you remember that? You were working in the library?
I think
sat down there?
so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when I said those. That was when I said those immortal words to you that I will never live down.
Those fateful words.
I came, for the people watching, I came in there and introduced to Eric. And is here's Eric Potter. He's our sound librarian. And I said, do you remember?
But I think it was basically like, I want your job.
Yes.
Were those the exact words?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I want your job.
Which is something I think, we've all thought in the presence of someone, but
and I just blurted it out.
Yeah.
I didn't make
it was quite charming, actually. I was both disturbed and charmed.
Well, we got to be friends pretty quickly, so that worked out well.
But you were made memorable. And the funny thing is, not yet at that point, but I had been thinking, like, I wonder, like, if I get out in the field more and do more recording and spend less time. It is fun being with these tapes and razor blades in the library, but the thing that attracted me to the whole idea was sort of when I noticed Doug Hemphill and Ezra Dweck taking the Nagra microphones, going somewhere and recording something, and that's the thing that sort of captured my imagination.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite looking for a way out, but you having said that, like, it wasn't that disturbing, because when you did get hired soon afterwards, I had the feeling like, oh, we can hold this library down, and if I could even go
Yeah,
out and experiment more in field recording, which ended up becoming the thing that's
sure.
my career, you know. So,
And Ezra
so
did that too just before you, and then went on
yeah,
to mixing.
yeah.
And I was happy to hold down the fort. And but I also had the fun of going out with you guys occasionally and being the
Oh yeah, you
second
gotta,
pair of hands or the
everybody.
third.
Yes.
Yeah, the back parking lot, it was like there was this narrow driveway to get in and then just this little lot. So we were always asking each other to move their cars if we had to go. I remember Danny Elfman was trapped once after a session that he had
Uh,
with us. But it was a great area to record too, because it was like boxed in. It was like completely boxed in, and you'd get this wonderful slap if you needed it. And I remember the driveway and the parking lot was a
yes,
great place to do stuff. Do you remember some of the things we did?
it's pretty pingy in that thing. It has a narrow passage. You could hardly get some cars and trucks through there actually.
Mhm.
But since the building was 2 stories tall and the building next to us was there, it was somewhat isolated from the city sounds. You know, helicopters and aircraft were still a problem, but it did sort of cut off, you know, some of the bus sounds and car sounds from the streets. And um, all I remember is that if you needed a sound effect, you know, and we had this nice studio room for mixing and recording. Sometimes we'd run in and record in the dead quiet space, you know, if to do a little Foley or a little quick last minute recording. But if you needed it to sound like it was outside and not in a studio, you know, we had that little spot. So a lot of times it was like specific footsteps or groups running or uh, you know, just things, not any, probably not any signature sound effects that I can remember,
I
but we
can,
just need, you know,
yeah,
and
little
maybe some
pickups.
horn honks and horn
Yeah.
honks from a car, so it sounds like it's in an alley and doesn't sound. You don't want it to sound like it's in the desert or something. And so it was a real great pickup spot, you know,
Yeah.
for like this horn doesn't sound right. Let's go record a horn in that because it's going to sound like it's in an alley. So
Yeah.
especially if you know the classic, you know, crime scene in an alley kind of, it had a
That's,
great vibe for that. Yeah.
I remember somebody was doing a show where they had someone dragging a body in like an aqueduct, and it was perfect for that.
Yeah.
And I volunteered. I was the body, and Ron Bartlett dragged me. I don't know if you recorded it or who did, but I remember I picked up my shoe at one point and scraped it on the thing as I was being dragged, and it made the perfect shoe squeak. I mean,
Oh
it was like
yeah.
this classic log, like that, and we always knew that it was in that session. We always pulled it out, and Ron remembered it because he was dragging my lifeless body, and he was working on a show, an IMAX film with a bunch of jets, and he needed that classic tire on the runway
Yeah, the
squeal,
landing.
and
Yeah.
he used my sneakers at half speed, and it was
Huh.
perfect.
Wow.
So
I remember that
I got to
execution
land a
actually.
jet with my shoe.
Yeah.